All right, let's dive into the philosophy of a legend, Bruce Lee.
Sounds good.
And we're going beyond the martial arts,
Right.
beyond the movies to uncover the thinking, the mindset that really powered his incredible life.
I like it.
We're going to be looking at some fascinating stuff from this academic paper. It's called AAI 319 Bruce Lee. And trust me, this deep dive is going to be pretty mind-blowing, I think.
Yeah. I mean, everyone knows Bruce Lee for his physicality.
Right, right.
But there's this whole other side to him.
Totally.
The ideas, the philosophy, that's what we're going to explore.
It's like a secret weapon almost.
Base.
Like the philosophy was the source of his power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. In this paper, it points out something really interesting.
Okay.
Bruce Lee believed the biggest problem in society, the thing that holds people back, is rigidity.
Rigidity.
Yeah, like being stuck,
Mm.
clinging to fixed beliefs, routines, not being able to adapt.
So like inflexible in mind and body.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Like this paper quotes Lee from the Tao of Kung Fu. He says, for true mastery, you need a mind free from desires and emotions. He actually compares it to a flower blooming,
Effortlessly.
Yeah, that natural growth.
I love that.
That's the kind of freedom he's talking about.
So rigidity, that's the obstacle.
Yeah.
And to overcome it, well, you need to, in Lee's own words, be like water. I mean, come on, that's classic.
Right.
But I'm curious, how does this paper take it, like, beyond just a cool quote?
It gets really practical, actually.
Okay.
It dives into how this whole be like water thing, it's not just a philosophy, it's a way of life. Like, think about water,
Right.
It adapts to any container. It flows around anything in its path.
Yeah.
Lee believed we should approach challenges the same way.
So instead of just, like, always meeting force with force,
Yeah.
you adapt, you be fluid.
Precisely. And this idea, this fluidity, it's central to understanding Lee's concept of Wuxin.
Wuxin.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a little more on that.
It basically means no mind.
No mind.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds a bit intimidating.
I know, right?
So is it like emptying your mind completely?
Not quite. It's more about clarity,
Okay.
openness. Lee describes the mind in this state like a mirror. It grasps nothing and refuses nothing. That's from his writings on Wuxin.
So it's less about having an empty mind
Right.
and more about being open to things as they are.
Yeah, not being limited by, your preconceived ideas, your biases.
I see.
This is so crucial for personal growth. And you see this play out in his films, too.
Oh, yeah. Like think about Enter the Dragon.
Exactly.
I mean, that final fight scene, come on.
Pure brilliance.
It's like poetry in motion.
Right. But it's not just about how cool it looks. Think about how he fights. He doesn't stick to one style, does he?
No, he's all over the place, but in a good way.
Right. He adapts to each opponent, flows from one technique to another.
It's like the whole movie's be like water in action.
Exactly. He's not just fighting opponents. He's embodying a way of life. And you see this connection to Eastern philosophy all through his work.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He was deeply influenced by Buddhism, Taoism.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. The fluidity, the letting go of attachments, it's all there.
Right.
I'm starting to see how it all connects.
This paper digs into those parallels, like the Buddhist idea of detachment. It's about letting go of, thoughts, desires, things that hold you back.
Okay.
Because clinging to them, that's what causes suffering.
So both Lee and Buddhism, they're both saying let go.
Exactly. And they both see it as a path to freedom.
Freedom.
For Buddhists, it's freedom from suffering. For Lee, it's freedom from a rigid mindset.
I like that.
Like this paper highlights Lee's concept of isness, which is, having freedom in its primary sense, not being bound by anything.
So it's like let go of what's holding you back and you find your true self, your true potential.
Absolutely. And the connections, they don't stop there. Lee's be like water also aligns with the Taoist concept of Tao.
Oh, the Tao, right, the way, the flow.
Yeah.
I see where you're going with this.
Taoism uses water as a metaphor, too, emphasizing its adaptability, its softness, but also its power, right?
Yeah, like water can carve canyons.
Exactly. It's a gentle but persistent force. And this is directly connected to Lee's belief in adaptability as a source of strength.
So it's not about fighting against the current, but more like learning to move with it.
Yes. And what's even more fascinating is that this paper, it suggests that Lee wasn't just like copying these ancient philosophies. He was giving them a modern twist.
A modern twist. Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Well, it points to Lee's, his famous statement that change is the only constant.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
He recognized that the world's in constant flux and we need to adapt if we want to thrive.
So he was like updating these ancient ideas,
Yeah.
making them relevant for a world that's on fast forward.
Exactly. He was taking these timeless principles, and making them work for the challenges of modern life. And that's why his philosophy is still so powerful today.
This deep dive is already changing how I see Bruce Lee. It's like I'm seeing him in 3D now, the philosopher right alongside the fighter.
And that's just the beginning. There's so much more to uncover as we delve deeper into his mind.
It's really amazing how he blended like this ancient Eastern thought with this modern dynamic perspective.
Yeah, and this paper, it digs into how Lee's upbringing, in Asian culture really influenced his philosophy.
Right.
These ideas of balance and fluidity, they're everywhere in Eastern traditions.
It's like that image of bamboo bending in the wind,
Oh, perfect analogy.
Strong but flexible.
Exactly. And this paper specifically talks about the influence of Buddhism and Taoism on Lee's philosophy. Two big pillars of Eastern thought.
Yeah, for sure. So how did Lee actually like integrate these ancient concepts into his own unique approach?
Well, we talked about the similarities between Lee's isness and the Buddhist idea of detachment.
Right.
But it goes deeper. This paper argues that Lee's, his Wuxin, or no mind, it shares a lot with Buddhist meditation. It's about quieting the mind to achieve clarity.
Okay, that's interesting because, I mean, when I think Bruce Lee, I think action, intensity, movement. But you're saying there's this whole other side that's about stillness, mental discipline.
Oh, absolutely. Lee saw the mind and body as two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. And many Eastern traditions, they really emphasize that mental training is just as important as physical training.
It's like finding that calm in the middle of the storm.
Yes. Yes. Like true strength comes from that inner balance.
Yeah.
And this paper also points out how Lee's, his be like water philosophy, it mirrors the Taoist concept of Tao, which we touched on earlier.
In the Tao, aligning yourself with the flow of the universe.
Exactly. And Taoism also uses water as the central metaphor,
Yeah.
emphasizing its adaptable nature. Like water can be gentle, but it's also incredibly powerful. Over time, it can erode even the hardest rock.
So both Lee and Taoism, they use water
Yeah.
to symbolize this strength that comes from yielding, like adapting to obstacles instead of just trying to force your way through.
Yes. And this paper even mentions how Taoism recognizes water's ability to erode materials despite its softness. This really echoes Lee's point about how adaptability can be, a key to overcoming challenges.
Right.
Sometimes the most effective way forward isn't through brute force, but through a more subtle, a more fluid approach.
It's like finding that path of least resistance.
Yes.
Like water does, flowing around the obstacle instead of just smashing into it.
That's the idea. Lee believed this principle applied to life in general, Be adaptable, be open to change, find creative solutions.
Don't get stuck in your ways. Be like water.
Precisely. And what I find really fascinating is how this paper suggests that Bruce Lee wasn't just borrowing from these philosophies. He was modernizing them.
Modernizing them.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, the paper argues that Lee brought a modern lens to these ancient ideas by emphasizing that change is the only constant.
Right.
He recognized that the world is in constant flux and we need to embrace that to thrive.
So he was taking this ancient wisdom and making it relevant for a world that's rapidly changing, always in motion.
Exactly. He understood that to truly embody these principles, you need to be dynamic. You need to be responsive to the ever-changing, landscape of life.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why his philosophy continues to resonate with people today.
This deep dive is really making me realize like there's so much depth to Bruce Lee beyond just his martial arts skills.
Yeah.
He was grappling with these really like profound questions about how we live and adapt in a world that's constantly evolving.
That's what makes him such a compelling figure, right? He was a martial arts master, a movie star, but also a philosopher, a cultural icon.
Right.
His ideas, they continue to inspire us and they challenge us to think differently.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about like these big ideas, but how do they translate into like practical advice for our listeners? How can we take these concepts from like theoretical to actionable?
That's a great question, and it's something I think we should explore further as we continue this deep dive.
Okay.
But if we look at Bruce Lee's life, his philosophy wasn't just something he talked about. It
Right.
was something he lived.
Yeah.
He was constantly learning, adapting, and evolving his
Yeah.
approach.
So it's less about like memorizing a set of rules
Right.
and more about cultivating a mindset, a way of being in the world.
Absolutely. It's about embracing change, being open to new experiences, and constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
It's about having that beginner's mind, right, that we
Mhm.
talked about earlier,
Mhm.
approaching life with curiosity
Yeah.
and a willingness to learn and grow.
Exactly. And the paper highlights how Lee himself was a constant student, always seeking knowledge, always refining his skills.
Mhm.
He believed that true mastery was a journey, not a destination.
I love that. So how can we apply that to our own lives? How do we like become more like Bruce Lee, not just, physically, but mentally and philosophically?
Well, we can start by examining our own areas of rigidity.
Okay.
What are the beliefs, the habits, the routines that are holding us back?
It's about identifying those places where we're stuck,
Yeah.
where we're resisting the natural flow of things.
Exactly. Once we identify those areas, we can start to experiment with being more adaptable. Maybe it's trying a new approach to a problem at work, or maybe it's stepping outside of your social comfort zone.
It's about being willing to fail,
Yes.
to make mistakes,
Yes.
and to learn from those experiences.
Yes. And the paper emphasizes that Lee saw failure not as an end, but as a stepping stone to success. He believed that every setback was an opportunity to learn and grow.
So instead of like fearing failure, we should embrace it as part of the process.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our perspective and seeing challenges as opportunities for growth.
This is really resonating with me. I feel like so much of our society is built on this idea of avoiding failure at all costs.
Hmm.
But Bruce Lee's philosophy, it suggests that it's through those failures that we truly learn and evolve.
Right. And he was very vocal about not being afraid to break the mold, to challenge the status quo.
Mm.
He believed that true growth came from pushing beyond your limits, from constantly challenging yourself.
That's so inspiring. I'm starting to see how being like water isn't just about adapting to external circumstances. It's also about having the courage to adapt and change from within.
Precisely. It's about having a flexible mindset, being willing to let go of old patterns and beliefs that no longer serve you.
So it's about both inner and outer adaptability. It's about being fluid in our thoughts, our actions, and our responses to the world around us.
That's a great way to put it. It's about cultivating that fluidity in all aspects of our being.
I'm really starting to see like the practical applications of Bruce Lee's philosophy.
Yeah.
It's not just about martial arts. It's about life itself.
And that's what makes it so powerful. It's a philosophy that can be applied to any situation, any challenge, any aspect of your life.
I'm curious though, what about those times when you need to stand your ground
Hmm.
to fight for what you believe in?
Right.
Doesn't being like water sound a bit too passive?
That's an excellent point, and it brings up a really important aspect of Lee's philosophy that's often misunderstood.
Oh, I'm all ears.
Being like water doesn't mean being weak or passive. Remember, water can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It can carve through rock.
Mm.
It can create canyons. It's about using your energy intelligently, finding the most effective way to achieve your goals.
So it's about knowing when to yield and when to push back.
Exactly. Lee believed that you need to be able to adapt to the situation. Sometimes the best approach is to be flexible and yielding,
Yeah.
to flow around obstacles. But other times you need to be assertive, to stand your ground and fight for what's right.
So it's not an either proposition.
Right.
It's about finding that right balance
Yeah.
for each situation.
Absolutely. And this paper, it points to a quote from Bruce Lee where he says, "Take things as they are. Punch when you have to punch. Kick when you have to kick.
Hmm.
He understood that true strength lies in knowing when to adapt and when to take a stand.
That's a really like nuanced understanding of being like water.
Yeah.
It's not about being passive, it's about being adaptable, responsive,
Yeah.
and knowing when to assert yourself.
Precisely. It's about having the wisdom to discern the most effective course of action in any given moment.
So how do we develop that wisdom, that ability to know when to yield and when to stand our ground?
That's where self-awareness comes in.
Okay.
Lee believed that true mastery began with understanding yourself,
Yeah.
your strengths, your weaknesses, your values.
It's about knowing yourself so well that you can respond authentically
Yeah.
and effectively to any situation.
Exactly. And this paper emphasizes that Lee was a strong advocate for self-knowledge. He believed that by understanding yourself, you could cultivate the clarity and the confidence to make the big choices in any situation.
This is making me think about like how often I react to situations based on like old patterns
Mm-hmm.
or conditioned responses, you know.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm truly responding in the way that aligns with my values and goals.
That's a great observation, and it highlights the importance of cultivating that no mind state that Lee talked about.
Well,
By quieting the mental chatter and clearing away those preconceived notions, we can access a deeper level of wisdom and intuition.
so it's about getting out of our own way,
Yes,
quieting
yes,
quieting the noise so we can hear our own inner voice.
precisely. It's about connecting with that inner knowing
Hmm.
that can guide us towards the most authentic and effective course of action.
This is really making me think about like the times in my life when I felt most aligned,
Hmm.
most powerful, and it's usually when I've been able to tap into that the inner sense of clarity and purpose.
And that's what Bruce Lee's philosophy is all about.
Mm.
It's about empowering yourself to live a life that's true to who you are,
Mm.
and to navigate the world with grace, strength, and adaptability.
This deep dive is so much more than just an intellectual exercise, you know.
Right.
It's a call to action. It's inspiring me to cultivate that be like water mindset in my own life.
And that's what's so exciting about exploring the philosophy of someone like Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
It's not just about learning about his ideas.
Right.
It's about applying them to our own lives
Yeah.
and using them to create positive change.
I'm eager to delve even further into how we can do just that.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee's legacy is so much richer than I ever imagined.
And we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
There's still so much to unpack as we continue our deep dive into the mind of this extraordinary individual.
I'm starting to see like being like water, it's less of a static concept and more of a dynamic process.
Hmm.
You know, it's this constant like interplay between adapting and yielding and then asserting yourself when necessary.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's not about being passive or aggressive. It's about being responsive, intuitive, and finding that balance point that allows you to move through the world with both strength and grace.
It makes you wonder though, did Bruce Lee always like embody this philosophy perfectly? Or was it something he struggled with and refined over time?
That's an interesting question. This paper doesn't really delve into Lee's personal struggles, but it does emphasize that he saw personal growth as an ongoing process. He was constantly learning, experimenting, and pushing himself beyond his limits.
So even Bruce Lee, the embodiment of be like water, was still evolving and refining his approach. That's actually kind of reassuring. You know, it makes this philosophy feel more attainable.
Absolutely. It highlights that this isn't about achieving some perfect state of being.
Right.
It's about embracing the journey,
Yeah.
the constant process of learning, adapting, and becoming a more well-rounded individual.
And it ties back to that key takeaway from the paper, the idea that change is the only constant. It's a simple statement, but it holds so much depth.
It really does. When Lee said that he was acknowledging that life is in a constant state of flux, nothing stays the same forever. And the more we resist that truth, the more we create suffering for ourselves.
It's like trying to hold on to water. The tighter you grasp, the more it slips through your fingers.
Exactly. And this paper argues that his understanding of this principle was deeply informed by Eastern philosophy.
Okay.
Think about the Buddhist concept of impermanence. It's the recognition that everything is constantly changing, everything is in a state of flow.
So instead of clinging to this illusion of permanence, we should embrace the reality of change and learn to navigate it skillfully.
Precisely. And that's where Bruce Lee's his be like water philosophy offers such valuable guidance.
Yeah.
Water doesn't resist change, it adapts to it. It flows around obstacles, it finds new paths, it transforms itself to fit the container it's in.
I'm starting to see how this concept can be applied to so many different aspects of life, whether it's navigating a career change, dealing with relationship challenges, or simply coping with the everyday ups and downs of life.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's a philosophy that can be applied universally.
Right.
It's about cultivating a mindset of flexibility, resilience, and adaptability.
Okay, let's get practical for a moment.
Yeah.
What are some concrete steps our listeners can take to start incorporating this be like water philosophy into their own lives?
Well, I think the first step is to cultivate self-awareness. Lee believed that true mastery begins with understanding yourself. So take some time to reflect on your own strengths, weaknesses, and values.
It's about getting to know yourself on a deeper level, so you can respond to challenges in a way that's authentic and aligned with who you are.
Exactly. And once you have a better understanding of yourself, you can start to identify areas where you might be holding yourself back. Where are you being rigid? Where are you resisting change?
It's about pinpointing those areas where we're stuck.
Yeah.
Where we're holding on to beliefs or habits that no longer serve us.
Right. And once you've identified those areas, you can start to experiment with being more adaptable. Maybe it's trying a new approach to a problem at work, or having a difficult conversation with a loved one.
It's about pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zones.
Yeah.
And being willing to try new things, even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
Yes, and it's important to remember that it's a process. It's not about being perfect. It's about making small adjustments over time and celebrating the progress you make along the way.
So it's about having patience with ourselves and recognizing that the change takes time and effort.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to seek support from others. Surround yourself with people who encourage your growth and who can offer guidance and perspective when you need it.
That's such an important point. We don't have to go through this alone. There are resources and people who can help us along the way.
Right. And remember that Bruce Lee himself was a lifelong learner. He was constantly seeking out new knowledge, new perspectives, new challenges.
Oh, so it's about staying curious, staying open to learning, and never stopping growing.
Exactly. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the philosophy of Bruce Lee.
Wow, what an incredible journey. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, but
Yeah.
but I've gained so much insight from exploring this fascinating world.
And remember, Bruce Lee's philosophy, it's more than just a set of ideas. It's a way of life.
Right.
It's about cultivating a mindset of adaptability, resilience, and continuous growth.
So as we go out into the world, let's all try to embody that be like water spirit. Let's be adaptable, let's be open to change, and let's never stop learning and evolving.
And with that, we'll leave you to ponder the wisdom of Bruce Lee and how you can apply it to your own life. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep flowing.